It had been one full week. 7 long days since Amaka last thought of David without her chest hurting. She tried her best. She washed more plates than usual. She arrived earlier than she used to. She smiled at every customer and said thank you, even when people were rude. But she wasn't really okay. She still checked her phone every night before sleeping, hoping to see a message. She still paused when she walked past places they used to go together. She still remembered the way he laughed with that other girl. It was Friday night, the busiest day of the week. The tables at Royal Tastes were all filled. Hungry customers came in groups. Friends, couples, families. The noise inside was loud, plates clinking, children laughing, spoons hitting bowls, people shouting, "Waiter!" The smell of grilled chicken, fried rice, and plantain filled the air. Amaka moved fast between tables, her tray balanced on one hand, a bottle of water in the other. Her white blouse was damp with sweat. Her shoes were dusty, but her face still carried a calm smile. She was just placing a cold malt on a table when the doorbell rang. She turned to welcome the next customer, and her heart jumped. There he was, David. He walked in like he was walking into a movie scene. Clean clothes, shiny wristwatch, expensive perfume. His dark trousers were pressed without a single wrinkle. His shirt hugged his body perfectly. He even walked differently now, like someone who had everything, and he wasn't alone. A beautiful woman held onto his arm like she owned him. She wore a red dress that sparkled. Her lipstick was bright and bold. Her nails were long and painted gold. Her hair was straight, shiny, and long enough to touch her waist. She laughed loudly, tossing her head back as David whispered something in her ear. The restaurant went quiet for a moment. Not silent, but soft, like everyone was pretending not to look. But they were looking. Waiters paused mid-step. A boy nearly dropped his spoon. A woman sitting by the window whispered to her friend, "Isn't that David?" "It's David," Amarachi whispered beside Amaka. "David that used to work here?" Amaka didn't respond. Her hands were frozen. Her feet felt heavy. Mama and Nkechi came out from the kitchen. Her hands were full of pepper-stained gloves. She stopped when she saw who had walked in. She stared for a long second. Then she took off her gloves and folded her arms. "Well," she said slowly, "look who's back." David saw her. He gave a small nod and walked past like she was a stranger. Mama and Nkechi didn't smile. "He used to mop this floor," she said quietly. "Now see him walking like he owns the place." David and his date sat at a table by the window. The woman crossed her legs and flipped her hair. David placed his phone on the table and leaned back. Amaka's heart beat so loudly she could hear it in her ears. Mama Nkechi walked to her side and whispered, "You'll take their order." Amaka nodded slowly. She picked up 2 menus. Her hands trembled just a little. She walked over to the table. The woman was still laughing. David was still acting like he didn't know anyone. When Amaka reached the table, she bent slightly and said in her usual soft tone, "Good evening. Welcome to Royal Tastes. What would you like to eat?" David looked at the menu, then at the woman. "Let's just get the special fried rice," he said without looking up. "Grilled turkey too," the woman added, smiling at her nails. David waved his hand. "Make it quick. I'm starving." Amaka nodded, turned, and started to leave. Then the woman spoke loudly, clearly on purpose. "David," she said, "this place is too local for us. Why is your waitress looking at you like that?" David chuckled. "Don't mind her," he said. "I only date women who match my standard." The words hit Amaka like cold water. She didn't turn around. She didn't speak. She walked into the kitchen and gave the order to the cook. Then she stood beside the sink, her back turned to everyone, her eyes closed. Her chest rose and fell quickly. "Are you okay?" Chiamaka whispered. Amaka opened her eyes and nodded. But she wasn't okay. She wasn't okay at all. When the food was ready, she picked up the tray and carried it out slowly. She placed the plates down gently. The woman looked her up and down. "At least she knows how to carry a tray," she said, sipping from her glass. David didn't reply. He was busy scrolling on his phone. Amaka didn't respond. She didn't even blink. She just walked away and didn't look back. The two of them sat there, eating, laughing, taking pictures, and whispering loudly. The woman called the restaurant too cheap. David agreed. They stayed for over 30 minutes. When they finished, the woman clicked her fingers. "Bill," she said. David dropped a few notes on the table. Then they stood up and walked out. Still laughing, still glowing. The restaurant grew quiet for a moment after the door shut behind them. Mama Nkechi shook her head. "Money is not everything," she said. The other workers stared at Amaka, but she didn't say a word. She just cleaned the table, took the plates, and walked into the kitchen. Then she asked quietly, "Can I get some air?" She stepped outside. The night air was cool. The stars twinkled above the water tank. She sat on a low bench behind the restaurant and pulled her knees to her chest. She tried to breathe, tried to forget what just happened, tried not to cry. When her shift ended, she walked home. The road was dark and quiet. Only the sound of her footsteps and the chirping of night crickets followed her. She passed the fruit seller packing up. She passed the boy who always played with his football in the evening. She passed the bus stop where she once waited for David in the rain. She opened her door, dropped her bag, didn't bother turning on the light. She laid down on her bed fully dressed. She didn't eat. She didn't drink water. She didn't even pray. She just stared at the ceiling. The night was long. The silence was loud. And that night, she cried herself to sleep. Amaka was tired of crying, tired of waiting for a message that would never come, tired of being seen as the girl who got left behind. So she made a promise to herself, a small, quiet promise. "I will rise," she whispered one morning, staring at her reflection in the mirror. "Even if it takes everything I have, I will rise." She started with one small step, saving money. Each time Mama Nkechi handed her salary in an envelope, she would walk straight to her small metal box at home and tuck most of it inside. Even when she wanted to buy new shoes, even when her wrapper had torn at the edges, even when her stomach growled, she saved. "Amaka," Amarachi said one afternoon, "you haven't eaten since morning." Amaka smiled weakly. "I'm fine." "No, you're not," Amarachi said. "You're always skipping meals." "I'm saving," Amaka replied. "Saving for what?" "For my future." When the restaurant closed at night, Amaka didn't just go home to sleep. She used her old phone to search for free online business classes. Sometimes the internet was slow. Sometimes the light was gone. But she didn't stop. She sat by candlelight, writing notes in an exercise book. Marketing, customer service, food costing, record keeping. Words she had never heard before became her new best friends. One day, she gathered courage and walked to a big restaurant in the city called Royal Pots. She waited outside until she saw the owner come out. "Excuse me, sir," she said softly. "Please, I want to learn." The man looked at her with surprise. "Learn what?" "How to run a business." He raised an eyebrow. "Are you a student?" "No," Amaka said. "Just a girl with a dream." He smiled. "Come tomorrow morning," he said. "Watch how we do things." Amaka started going every week on her day off. She watched how the kitchen was organized. She listened when the manager corrected staff. She wrote everything down. She even asked questions. "Sir, how do you keep food fresh without wasting? How do you deal with rude customers? How do you set prices?" The owner, Mr. Emmanuel, was impressed. "You remind me of my daughter," he said one day. She never stops asking questions too. Amaka laughed. Maybe I'm your restaurant daughter. Back at Mama Nkechi's restaurant, things continued as usual. Mama Nkechi noticed her. You've changed, she said one evening. You no longer complain like before. Amaka smiled. I'm just learning to be better. Mama Nkechi nodded. You're stronger than you know. Amaka started cooking at home too. She tested new recipes using borrowed ingredients. She invited her neighbors to taste. What do you think? She asked. The little boy next door said, licking his fingers. This jollof rice is sweet like party rice. Her heart swelled. But things were not always easy. Sometimes she felt tired. Sometimes the money finished before the end of the month. One night, her cooking pot broke. Another day, her phone fell into water. She cried. She almost gave up. But then she would remember her promise. I will rise. 2 years passed. 2 long, hard, faithful years. The small box under her bed grew full. One morning, she opened it and counted everything. She gasped. I can do it, she whispered. I have enough. With help from Mama Nkechi and advice from Mr. Emmanuel, she bought a small cart and painted it white and green. She called it Amaka's Delight. She placed it under a mango tree by the bus stop. Her first day was quiet. Only 2 people bought food. But she smiled. She didn't give up. The next day, 5 people came. By the end of the week, she had 10 customers. And then one day, a taxi driver shouted, That rice stand under the mango tree? E sweet die. The news spread. People lined up during lunch. Someone posted her food on social media. A man in a fine shirt came one afternoon. Are you Amaka? He asked. Yes. My office people want you to cater our next meeting. Her eyes widened. Me? Yes, your food has entered our office group chat. Amaka began waking up at 5 a.m. to prepare stew, boil rice, fry plantains, and make pepper soup. She tied her headscarf tight and pushed her cart to the roadside with a proud heart. People loved her food. They loved her smile. They loved her story. One woman even told her, Your food tastes like home. Amaka blinked away tears. That's the best thing anyone has ever said to me. She started earning more than she ever did working under someone else. She saved again. Not for shoes, not for bags, but for a dream that had now become bigger. A real restaurant. 1 year later, the dream came true, with the help of friends, old customers, and pure hard work. She opened a small building near the corner of the main road. White paint, wooden chairs, red curtains, a signboard that said, Amaka's Kitchen. And just like that, Amaka became the proud owner of Amaka's Kitchen, a beautiful restaurant that attracted customers from all over the city. Amaka was no longer the girl who cried in the dark. She had grown. Her pain had not gone to waste. It had become power. The name Amaka's Kitchen was no longer just painted on a small sign. It was printed on flyers, printed on billboards, and spoken on the lips of people in taxis, buses, and even offices. People came from all over, some just to eat, some just to see her, some just to say, Well done, you inspire me. Her kitchen became more than a place to sell food. It became a place of hope. She woke up before sunrise every morning. Sometimes the alarm wasn't even needed. Her heart woke her up. She checked the inventory. She touched every table before the doors opened. She greeted her workers by name and asked how their families were. Let's feed with love today, she always said. In just 1 year, the restaurant grew faster than she expected. Customers asked for more. Madam, your food is too good to stay in one place. Open a spot near my office, please. Come to Port Harcourt. So she did what she always did. She worked. She studied the neighborhoods, spoke with vendors, saved more, and planned harder. She opened a second branch, then a third. Each one looked different, but they all felt the same. Warm, welcoming, wonderful. TV crews came to film her story. Reporters asked, "What kept you going?" Amaka would smile and say, "God and hunger. Hunger for more than survival." Children sent her letters from schools. One said, "Dear Auntie Amaka, when I grow up, I want to make people happy with food just like you." One day, a young girl walked into her restaurant with her mother. The girl was quiet. She held a notebook. Amaka knelt to meet her eye level. "Hello," she said warmly. "What's your name?" "Kioma," the girl whispered. "And what brings you here?" Kioma handed her the notebook. "Please sign," she said. "You're my role model." Amaka signed, hugged her, and whispered, "You'll go farther than me." The girl smiled for the first time. With the growth came rewards. Amaka finally bought her own house. Not a rented room or a shared apartment, but a real home. It had white walls, brown doors, and a red rooftop. A mango tree stood proudly at the front. She walked through the rooms, touching the walls gently. "This is mine," she whispered. "This is really mine." She cried joyful tears. She also bought a modest car. Nothing flashy, just reliable. Now she could visit all her branches without standing in line for buses. She played music while driving. Sometimes she sang along. Sometimes she just smiled and let the wind blow her scarf back. She started getting invited to speak at schools, conferences, and business expos. Her first time on stage, she wore a simple gown and held the microphone with both hands. "My name is Amaka," she began, "and I started with nothing but a dream, a pot, and a plan." People clapped. Some cried. Some stood up and cheered. Her story spread even further. One morning she got a call. "Hello, is this Miss Amaka?" "Yes." "You've been selected to speak at the African Women in Business Summit in Abuja." She froze. "Me?" "Yes, Ma. We'll send your flight details shortly." She packed slowly for the trip, carefully folded her clothes, pressed her best blouse, wrote her speech. On the flight, she stared out the window. "Who would have thought?" she whispered. The event was held in a grand hotel. Chandeliers sparkled from the ceiling. The carpet was soft under her feet. Guests walked in with glittering dresses and polished shoes. Amaka wore a long green dress and carried a brown clutch. She didn't feel small. Not anymore.